Photographer of the Year, let's hear it for Dan Shelley, Shellda Photos.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Shellda Podcast. And today I'm joined by none other than Archie Barnes Jr., ABJ, the man, the missile. I've heard so many different nicknames for you. ABJ, how are you today, sir?
Doing great, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. Where are we tuning in from?
Tuning in live from the house here in Vallejo, California. Beautiful
Okay.
day. Yeah.
It's like we're getting close to that like cooler, obviously sweatshirt hoodie season for both of us.
Oh, yeah.
It's my favorite time of the year.
Yeah. Not
Awesome.
too cold.
Yeah, exactly right. Like
Yeah.
I took the dog out this morning and like it was a little brisk. I'm like, man, we're still a few weeks away from like having a super bundle up.
Yeah.
Awesome. So before we jump into a lot of the questions, first of all, congratulations. You just dropped some huge news recently about obviously leaving Notorious and then joining Baltimore Revo, who's now Baltimore Arsenal. Tell me about that.
So, yeah, I had a few practices with Baltimore Revo. Got to know some of the guys a little bit. I just recently met Tom Ford, who's the owner of Baltimore Arsenal. We just rebranded this season a couple of days ago, I found out. But, I decided to step away from Notorious. It was a long 3 years for me, and definitely grateful that, Mark Franz and Marky brought me in and gave me a chance, gave me a shot. We got the pro spot, and, we were able to dig it out those last couple of years. But, meeting Tom and going forward, I thought looking at the team from up and down, from the roster perspective, I thought it was a great roster, and I thought I would fit in. I felt like the snake position, they needed more of like a missile. No disrespect to Caleb Abel, because he's a great player too. But, Tom was willing to take a risk on me and give me a chance. I don't know that it sounds counterintuitive, a West Coast guy going all the way to Baltimore, traveling to the East Coast. It didn't sound like a great move. A lot of people thought I was going to be local, possibly join Impact, possibly join Dynasty. But, the universe works in mysterious ways. And unfortunately, I got blessed to meet Tom. And like I said, Tom took a risk on me, and here we are.
Isn't that crazy, right? Like, of course, you and I chatted about some of the different potential teams for you to land at. And, always in the spick and span show, people are like, ABJ to Dynasty, ABJ to Iron Man. And just sometimes you never know how things are going to play out. And it sounds like it's a perfect fit for you. When I heard that, I was like, oh, that makes sense. Sometimes you'll hear players go to other teams. You're like, huh, like why? Like that's a head scratcher.
Interesting move, right?
Yeah, but like from what I know about Revo or now Arsenal, that's gonna be hard to like break. How many times like we say Revo but Arsenal?
Arsenal. Yeah.
But like what I know about of the Arsenal crew and the family, it's that itself. It's a family. Like they take care of each other and they look out for each other, and that's exactly you. You're a family guy.
Yeah, and that's exactly that was a selling point for me, was that they seem very family oriented, and a lot of those guys have family themselves.
Yeah,
so I was like, oh, okay, I'll fit in a lot with these guys. They have, not to say that I wouldn't fit in anywhere else, but these guys seem like a great group of guys, and I feel like everyone has the same kind of winning mentality. They're all like-minded. They all have they want to do what it takes to win, and that's what I want to be around.
That hey, there's that saying, right? Always surround yourself with like-minded people, because that elevates your game. And so that's awesome. And I think you're a Raiders fan, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
How is it going to be wearing black and purple? Like I don't even see, I'm a diehard Baltimore Ravens fan, so I'm excited for that.
Yeah, it was funny because I was like, do I rep Baltimore? And I was just like, I'm not going to wear Orioles because I'm not really a baseball fan. And then the Ravens, I'm like, I can't disrespect my Raiders. You know what I mean? Us and the Ravens have had a rivalry back in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Guys were on that run with Ray Lewis and
Reed and Suggs. Yep.
yeah. I was like, oh man, yeah.
It'll be. So, are you still going to roll up to the tournaments with a Raiders hat on?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm actually shopping on Amazon right now for a Raiders beanie so I can wear it for the season. And
there you go.
Yeah.
I love that. That's cool. Well, I'm glad you're still sticking to your roots, even though maybe I can get you like a little. You're still wearing black and purple, so it works out for me.
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. So one of the questions I would love to start asking the pros when I have on is, I think everybody, when they're watching from Go Sports or any other streaming service, they see all of you guys, like you, Ryan Greenspan, the Oliver Langs of the world, and they're these superstars, the top of the league, the top 1%. And I think there's a big misconception that a lot of professionals are driving around in Lamborghinis and like these super flashy lifestyles, but that's not really it. I think most of the NXL league, it's kind of a blue collar, like a working person's league. A lot of people are in between these events where you become superstars. You're having to grind just to get there.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I would love for you to, tell the audience, what do you do for a living, and what do you do from Monday through Friday in between the paintball weekends?
Sure. So I work for a major hospital corporation here on the West Coast for Kaiser Permanente. I've been with them for about 14 years now.
Wow.
Coming up in December. Started off as a lab assistant, drawing blood, phlebotomist, and then worked my way up to a supervisor position. And now I switched departments. I actually am a manager, a quality manager for histology, which is in our pathology department at our mother lab, about 15 minutes away from my house. Not too bad.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I've been there for quite a while, and I just sit behind a desk all day and kind of just do quality work, shuffle paperwork, and make sure the lab is running okay.
Yeah, man. Cool. Well, congrats. It sounds like you had a recent promotion or recent bumps. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, about 3 years ago. Blessed enough to be in that position. Working for 14 years and been able to get up to that, and work up a bunch of vacation time so I can get off to travel for paintball.
That's the important part, right?
Yeah. So fortunately for me, I only share vacation with one other person, which is my boss, and she doesn't travel much until probably the end of the year. But when she's gone for like 2 or 3 months at a time.
And then so you got to cover.
And then pretty much I have to cover, or sometimes I get lucky and they let me off too. And but thank God for the NXL schedules coming out earlier. I could just plan it out all through the year, and she's like, "All right, approved."
Yeah,
she's pretty cool. So
that's awesome. Have you ever? I think about this a lot, especially like in my profession too, and just life in general. Mm-hmm. Just the similar parallels of paintball and like life, right? Like through paintball, you kind of hit on it earlier. You went through all the ranks of lower divisions up to semi-pro notorious, mm-hmm. pro notorious, and now you're moving on. Right. You kind of just explained that with your professional career too. Is like you kept moving all around to keep hitting your career goals.
Right. So like when I started off in D5, actually when I first started playing at paintball, I just never thought I would make it to this level. I started off at D5 just playing for fun, just to see.
Yeah.
And then I got to the D4 level, and then I kind of like had a talk with myself, and I was like, I could do this. Let's see how far I could actually take it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think I can take it all the way pro if I take it serious enough. And sure enough, I got here, and it was a lot of work, man. A lot of work, a lot of patience. You have to be, super dedicated and take it serious outside of paintball. But just be, you can go play, of course. It can be really talented and good, but if you implement the other aspect of like working out your body, staying disciplined, eating right, studying the game, watching game film, learning from, higher level players, and just being around them, like, you'll develop, light speed pretty much. I've only been playing for 7-8 years now, so yeah.
That's actually one of my next questions was how long would when that first thought was like, oh, I can go pro. Mm-hmm. When you had that thought, do you remember back to when did you find out about the pro scene? Like, was it Sacramento excessive, or like what pro team kind of like had your thought of like, oh, there's something professional here?
So when I was first introduced to the game, I think it was like 2002, and it was rec ball was introduced to me, but I also seen it on ESPN when it was first aired. I think I was watching the Naughty Dogs versus, I want to say, Aftershock. It was like a finals game or something like that. I was like, oh, this is a professional thing. Like they actually do this.
Yeah.
And I was very intrigued because when I was first introduced to the game, I was introduced to like a Piranha semi-automatic gun.
I know the Piranha, yeah.
Yeah, and then I seen, cutscene to ESPN. I see a carnivore, and like I'm like, oh shit, they have like automatic guns. It wasn't automatic, but
Yeah, it shoots super fast.
it
Yeah.
shoots super fast. So it seemed like it was automatic, and I was like, oh, that's pretty fucking cool. Like I want one of those, but that's not how life worked when I was
Yeah, totally
old. I couldn't afford a $1,500 gun, and I worked for it, and I was on and off from 2002.
Yeah.
But I took it seriously back in 2017. That was my first D5 event with the Knockout Bandits. It was an AFPO.
Wow.
And we took dead last.
Oh, man.
It was 112 degrees that day, I remember.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Do you ever think back to that moment and like what you were thinking as a player? It was like, wow, am I ever like, did I make the wrong decision? And like now obviously you're on a professional level.
No, it motivated me because I was like, I never want to have that feeling again of, just getting the shit beat out of you. And I'm like, no, I want to be the one to win. And sure enough, the very next tournament, we went back and won first place. Back-to-back days. I won a 3-man and I won a 5-man first place.
Wow. So see, like everything comes full circle, right? You stuck it through and there you are having results right after.
Yeah.
Speaking about that time in the early 2000s, I think a lot of people talk about that was some of the peak moments of paintball, right? And it seems like we're trending back towards that. I think back to that time when, I was just looking at magazines and just dreaming of like, wow, these pros out there.
Me and you both, bro.
Yeah, right. And I specifically remember at some point seeing Arsenal in those magazines and like, wow, those are such cool jerseys. Like I would love to, wear one of those.
Yeah.
Has that clicked yet for you? Is like the kid that was seeing that team in those magazines, you're now playing for them?
Crazy story. I actually didn't know about Arsenal up until some years ago. I can't recall seeing them in magazines because I, paid more attention to like the Dynasty Excessive guys.
Sure.
And then for some reason, I have this super clear remembrance of LTZ on the cover of Faceful.
Yeah.
That was a team called Less Than Zero, and they were like the green dye.
Black and green. I remember that.
Yeah. But from what I hear, it was an iconic brand. So to be a part of that, and I think the name is pretty cool. So yeah,
they did some really cool stuff with their brand when they had it. I think it was a lot of like black and red and kind of silver, if I recall.
We're trying to bring that back, but we can't, unfortunately.
Yeah. Are you guys, well, because I know like with the NXL, if you're going to change colors, I think that has to go through like an approval process too.
Right.
Has Tom spoken about that? Like, is the colorway going to change?
So that's in the works. I can't say anything specifically other than, Aftermath already has red and silver, and Iron Man already have black and red. So, that pretty much answers that. But, so we're trying to find some alternates, but, I told them, I was like, I love the color purple. Like, just keep it. But, it's Arsenal, their roots are black and red. So I'm sure they're going to try to stick some red in there somewhere.
I'm surprised you didn't try to float like, hey, we're all black and silver.
Dude, I did.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, but maybe it was a little too boring for the guys because none of the guys responded to it in the group chat. And
man.
Black and silver. I mean, what is Uprising? Are they black and white? Are they?
Oh, good question. I think they've got to be black and white or black and silver, but there's always a color pop. It's either like red, yellow, or orange, I feel like is their alternate color.
Yeah.
But their jerseys you're right, they're always black and gray or black and white. So maybe that's why you can't go that.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I think their jerseys are cool, but they're just kind of boring, I feel like.
Sometimes boring is kind of clean.
True.
I like this is a weird thing, but you know how Penn State,
Yeah, the black
like
or the blue and white.
the navy blue and white, like it's plain, but it's like a clean look.
Yeah, totally. It's like a iconic classic look too.
Exactly. Just like the Raiders. It's always been the same jerseys, silver and black, same.
Yeah,
Yeah, but sometimes it's boring is kind of crisp.
true. Yeah, yeah. That's a good point. It's like styles, right? Like styles come back, but that classic look is always there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cool. So tell me, why paintball? I know you've dabbled in golf for a little bit, and I'm sure there's been other sports throughout your life, but what is it about paintball that has you stepping away from your family multiple weekends a year?
Um, Honestly, it's just really cliche, like kind of how everyone says it's a therapeutic thing where you kind of escape for a little while and you're in a different realm, you're in a different universe, right? You're solely focused on paintball, you're solely focused on winning together as a team. I think the camaraderie is what I like the most, just
Yeah,
being around the guys, pause, but like, going out, having fun, thinking about paintball, being around people who love it just as
yeah,
much as you do. But um, from a personal perspective as a player, I would say that it's kind of like a golf shot. It's like
yeah,
hitting a flush iron shot or you know, a really good tee shot. Um, as a snake player, when you get that 3 to 5 pack, you keep chasing that more and more and more. You're like, damn, that felt really good. And then to go back to the nets and get recognition from your teammates, from the announcers, from your coaches, like you keep chasing that feeling. And it
yeah,
allows me to kind of like stay hungry. It allows me to be disciplined in like my everyday life. Like I work out and run. Like I wasn't doing that before, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Before paintball, like I played other sports. I played football, I did wrestling, I did boxing, but like naturally, I got it from my mom and my parents. Like I'm a perfectionist, so whatever I do, I try to perfect it. So that's where I am with paintball. And every point that I go play and I actually watch myself and go back and watch it over and over again, I'm never satisfied with the points that I play. Even when I get that 3 or 5 back, I'm like looking at it, I'm like, damn, I ran that route kind of ugly. Like it looked, I could have been a little bit faster, a little bit lower. I could have shot that guy a long time ago. I could have made this move a little faster. Like I'm always critiquing myself. So am I ever going to be perfect? Probably not. But that's ultimately what I chase is
sure.
perfection and to ultimately win, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, if you're not chasing that, I think that's where you see the level difference of people in any profession, like the people that really are breaking down and critiquing
yeah,
every small thing. It's that's the difference maker, right?
yeah.
Um, one follow up to that, when you are going back and looking at like game film of yourself, do you have like a journal or like is it just a notes app on your phone where you're like, I need to focus on this next time and remember this for the next event, or do you keep a log of any of that?
No, it's more so of taking like mental notes. So like going when I came back from my leave, baby bonding,
Yeah.
and I came back to the Chicago event. I played, super sloppy, and it was just embedded in my mind. And I was just like, damn, I came out on the tape with my whole shoulder showing, and he shot me before I even got to look at him. Like that
Hmm.
was embedded into my mind. Like just those little minor mistakes. I'm like, okay, I need to do this better. I need to make my cross shots. I need to get those kills for sure. That was something I was missing in Chicago,
Yeah.
like across the field, like easy kills. And I'm just like, how am I missing these shots? So that was something I drilled, I trained on, I worked on my snapshot the whole time between Chicago and World Cup. And then, going in the World Cup, I was just like, all right, you do it so much and you drill so much that it's embedded into your brain that when you go out there, it's just like clockwork. It's just easy. Click,
You
click,
don't even
click,
think
click,
about
click.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, even before that, even before Cup, I was making mistakes, and my coach was just kind of telling me like, "Hey, you need to do this better. You need to make this move a little bit lower." So that type of shit I think about every time when I'm on the field. Yeah.
What about so like now that you say that, this is kind of an interesting question for me. Like I'll look at pictures of players, especially guys that I've taken a lot of photos of, like you, for example. Like
Yeah.
the Ryan Greenspans of the world, and I can see some differences in your style. And so I can see like, okay, like your body's a little different here. Do you also notice that when paintball media like will post a picture of you or a reel, you're like, oh, I should have done that differently, or that's the exact moment where, man, I dropped my gun too quick?
100%. Yeah, yeah. I always think of things like that. I just, like I said, I'm a perfectionist. So when I look at certain photos, I'm just like, oh, that posture is like ugly. Like, why is my loader out before my head? Like,
Yeah,
that kind of stuff. Yeah, definitely look at things like that.
yeah,
Little details, right? Details make differences for sure.
yeah. That's cool to hear, because I think a lot of younger players or divisional players, when they see anybody that posts a photo of them, they're like ecstatic, like, oh, this is so cool. Verbal just posted a reel, or whoever it is posted a photo. But I think what's different for the professionals like yourself is when you see that, sometimes like, ugh, like that's ugly form, like now it's gonna kind of eat you inside and to get a
Yeah,
better shot next time.
yeah. It's kind of, yeah, you kind of cringe at it sometimes. You're just like, oh man, like why am I screaming like that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or sometimes I get on myself too because I'm like, fuck, I'm like running too high. I look crazy. Like, very critical on how I run my routes. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I've listened. Yeah, that's something I picked up on from you, because being around you with Notorious quite a bit, and also listening to you on the Spick and Span show. It seems like there's either a passion or there's something about it with you and running where you take it to a whole nother level. Like the whole cleat conversation that you
yeah,
had.
yeah,
I literally feel like 3 or 4 weeks after that Outlaw, I saw players with brand new cleats, and like I kept hearing, oh yeah, ABJ said this, ABJ
yeah.
said this about my cleat. So where does that come from, and what goes through your brain when you're running?
It's all kind of just personal experience. I think it ultimately kind of came from like track, right? I look at it like, how do those guys get maximum speed? Well, because they're on flat surface and they have spikes. So we kind of try to emulate that, like as far as having a stiff sole plate
Mhm.
in my cleats, and then looking at the stud pattern, because if you don't have studs in certain places, you could possibly slip off the box, and that ultimately can mess up your route. You can mess up the timing on how you make it, and I think that comfort for me now that I'm in my 30s is a huge part, right? Because I'm starting to learn that when your feet are messed up or they hurt, it affects the rest of your body. It
Mhm.
affects how you play too, because you're kind of like thinking about it, you're like, oh fuck, my foot hurts. Like I don't want to be in this position. Like I want to, get out of this position. So
Yeah.
like, it's a difficult process, even just looking for cleats, right?
Yeah.
But I kind of found some cleats that I really really like. I know Ryan Greenspan. He's sponsored me with some cleats, and I
Oh,
bought.
is he?
I well, just a pair, and I bought a pair of New Balances on my own.
Cool.
Um, there's something about them that I don't like. Maybe it's that particular model. Maybe I have to, explore some different options with New Balance. But those particular ones, they like really kind of narrow towards the toes, so it takes a little bit off of my speed.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah, yeah,
That's crazy. It's crazy to hear somebody as fast as you. You're breaking down the smallest parts of the shoe that will essentially shave off seconds or milliseconds
right,
of your speed.
right.
Wow.
Yeah, so I lean more particularly to soccer cleats just because they're a lot lighter and a little more malleable to the foot, whereas football cleats, they could take a little longer to break in.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably have to work. They're a lot more durable. I will say that because soccer cleats kind of
Sure.
break down a little bit. But I do have to like have a fresh pair of cleats before every event, just so I could have that extra secureness and that stickiness to the dirt. Yeah,
So you're actually right before the event. You're bringing out a brand new pair of cleats. You're not breaking them in or anything.
every time.
Wow.
There, yep,
Wow. I didn't know that. That's cool to know.
yeah.
Are you gonna do anything like special this year, where you're gonna have like custom cleats or like any designs on them or anything?
Not specifically. So, this is how heavy I've gotten into soccer cleats. Like, I started to collect some of the iconic models after,
Oh, cool.
the uses after tournaments. I kind of just put them to the side and just collect. But I didn't know soccer cleats can be so expensive.
Mhm.
I actually went to a soccer store the other day, and they had some retro versions from like the earlier 2010s, and
Okay.
they were like $300-$400. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it's like it's kind of like a sneaker thing. Just because
Yeah.
like the older models, they seem to have more of a quality build than the newer
Sure.
models. Because the
Makes
newer
sense.
models, they all use this kind of like synthetic leather, or, synthetic upper to make the shoe lighter, and
Hmm.
they're just not as durable as they used to be. Yeah,
Wow. That could be a new trend that you start for this season. Everyone does jersey swaps. Maybe you do cleat swaps with people.
well, cleat swaps would be crazy.
Especially for all like the sneakerheads in the league. I'm sure there's a ton of them.
Yeah, well, if they do, they're getting a youth-sized kid shoe.
Hey, that just means there's more room on their shelf to put more.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. Awesome. Um, Jumping back to the pro field, what have been some of your favorite moments playing professionally?
So far, I can't pinpoint one tournament exactly. Well, maybe I can. One of my more favorite tournaments was Philly last year with Notorious, and well, obviously with Notorious, it's the only team I've been with in the pro division. But I don't know, man. There's something about that trip was pretty cool. I got to spend the week with pretty much all my teammates. Um, we got a house in the woods, basically, and it was right by a lake, and that was pretty cool. And I had never been to New York City, and it was like a 2.5 hour drive. And
Wow.
Logan Dyer's dad, Cliff, drove us all the way to Newark. We caught the train, made it to Manhattan, and to say the least, I was pretty overwhelmed. I was like, holy shit! Like New York is like New York. Like
Massive. It's
it's big,
massive.
massive. It's kind of overwhelming where you're just like, what? There's like too much to take in at one time. Like, holy
Yeah.
shit! But I got settled in. We walked around, went to Popeyes for lunch, which was weird.
Yeah.
Uh,
Why would you not do like New York pizza or something?
no, we got to do that too. So we
Okay,
ended up
good.
in where is it, Soho or something like that. Somewhere,
Sure.
something. We accidentally found a famous pizza spot, and it was actually,
Cool.
yeah. And I got to enjoy it. It was really good. But the overall culture in New York City was pretty dope. And
Yeah.
I think Philly was the first Sunday we made all together.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, and it actually, I don't think it did. It rain? It rained the day before the
It
tournament,
did.
and it
Yeah, it did.
didn't. Yeah, and it didn't. What you call it? That was a really fun time. We got to spend some time in New York, explore the
Now,
countryside, explore the city. But yeah,
what hat did you wear in the city? Was it a Yankees hat?
you know what? I can't even remember.
Oh
I,
man.
I didn't have my Yankees hat at that time. I think I had a probably a Bass Pro Shop hat or something.
Okay.
I have so many hats. Obviously, you got to cover this bald head. Yeah.
I figured, I'm a big Yankees fan too, and so I don't know if I've ever seen you in a
Oh,
Yankees hat. I
I
feel
did.
like,
Just
all
because it
right,
was an iconic hat, I was just like, you gotta have a New York Yankees hat.
yeah, it's that one of those iconic logos that just wherever you go in the world, people recognize it.
Right, right, right.
Yeah, yeah. I think I may have my events backwards, but I think one of my favorite ABJ moments, I think, was that event.
Really,
As I remember, was that the time you guys played Dynasty? Was it in Philly?
might have been.
I think. And again, I may have these backwards, but I remember I was talking to you at some point, and you were
I
like,
think
"Man,
so.
it's,"
Yeah.
and you're like, "It's going to be so cool to play Archie Montemayor." And I remember you just talking about like how I think you looked up to him at some point, or like he was a mentor, um, and it's just like the moment was you couldn't recreate it. Like after you guys played, you guys hugged each other, and I just happened to be in the right moment at the right time, and like got you hugging where I could see you, I could see the back of his jersey.
Mhm.
And that's just, it's one of my favorite moments that you shared with me that I was able to capture.
Yeah. So that was a funny story. I can't say that I look up to him. He's not like a mentor or anything like that, but he's definitely a player I look up to. Obviously, he's on that elite level status. Probably might go down as one of the best players ever,
Yeah.
right? Arguably. But no, it was like a how do you describe it? I wouldn't say a premonition, but it was more so like a clear vision I had when I was in D4. And I remember specifically posting about it on my story on Instagram. And I was like, holy shit, I just had this clear vision that I just shook hands with Archie Montemayor on the pro field. And sure enough, that opportunity presented itself and it happened and you captured that. And that was a very, very special moment for me. And a few people reached out to me because they remember specifically when I posted that on my story, I think like 6 years ago. Right. And that shit was crazy. I'm a firm believer in what is that called? Like not positive thinking, but like
I think it's manifestation is what you're thinking about, or manifesting.
Right. Like you can think about it so clearly. You see it, you feel it, you smell it, but like that particular moment was like crazy to me. I was mind blown myself. I was like, oh shit, like damn.
That's so wild. Can you imagine going back to that, young kid that was playing in what you said, D6 or whatever the division was, and say, hey, you are going to meet Archie one day. You are going to shake hands and you're going to play against him.
Crazy. I'd be a little kid. I'd probably be running around the house, going crazy, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, that was a really cool moment to capture. And I think you ended up, don't you have that like printed in your house? Isn't it framed somewhere?
No, not yet.
No? We got to make that happen.
You got to make that happen. Hey, I like some of the art pieces you've put out yourself that you've captured. And I was like, oh, maybe I can. I'll get Dan to do it for me one day, and I'll pay you something for it.
Yeah, dude, I would be honored. Maybe once Arsenal drops their new colorway, we can do something like that.
Hell yeah, that'd be dope.
Yeah, cool. Well, speaking of pictures, I actually, something I'm doing on the show is I'm gonna break down a picture or two of either from this past weekend that I took or from a recent event, and I figured, since we have you on, what I would love to do is actually break down some pictures that I took of you at World Cup, and kind of let you get into a peek inside of my mind and how I work. So let me pull this up here quick. All right. So I think this is, you had actually asked me about this. You're like, hey, do you have any pictures of the clear or like, yeah, the clear?
I wanted to do something different. I was just like, all right, let me switch it up. It's World Cup.
Yeah, it's a good look. And so what I did is I just grabbed, I think this is like 18 photos right in a row. And so when you're coming off the box, I kind of know if you're coming or not. Like a lot of pros have just like their body language is, there's something different. It's like, I knew you were coming. And I think this is where, I think some people call it the broken arrow, right? Where like you run up to this anvil and you dive straight into the snake. That was the pretty common move there. Right. And so when I'm capturing you, I'm hitting, the shutter button the whole entire time until you literally drop in front of me. And so my process is I'll pull all these photos up into Lightroom and I literally go one by one to see like, all right, what's that moment that I think is the one, so I'll go all the way over here. Like you're too far there. And so I'm going to go back. I love when you first hit the ground.
I hate it.
You hate it, huh?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a beautiful photo. No disrespect, but for me, I hate when I dive like that, where my foot flails in the air.
Up here. Yeah.
When I land initially, like I have to get rid of that. That has to go away.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, even that right there, right? That foot, that's one of the lower, I guess we can call it. It's not a scorpion. Some people call it scorpion, but that's one of the lower ones that I've seen. Mm-hmm. So your form's actually, I think, pretty spot on here compared to some of the other pros. Because some pros, they're just completely flipping up over.
Yeah.
But this, of course. And so as I'm going through my photo, what I love is you're wearing the clear lens here. It's like, it looks like you're looking right at me when you're coming in, whether you are or not. But that just screams intensity in the edit. Mm-hmm. And so I think I'm actually going to land on this one. And I think this was later in the day on Saturday. This might have been your last set. And so
last set, yeah.
Yeah. And so the lighting here is pretty tough. And so the first thing that I do is I typically drop a preset that I made previously. And so like, this is one that I had from Texas just as a starter point. And then what I'll do is I can take the exposure way up, but then you start to blow out a little bit, right? You start to lose some of your color. But I really want these blues to pop in your jersey. I want the whites to pop in your jersey and your lens. And so I'll pull this white meter up a little bit. See if we can get some of those blacks to show down a little bit. And then the big thing for me, like the last part, once I have all of my colors dialed in, it's how do I crop this thing? Like a lot of times what I'll do is I'll put you off to either the right side, the right side or the left side. It's rare that I actually will center player, like dead center my photo. But I think for this one, it actually kind of works because you're looking right at me.
Yeah, that's
and so I think that right there is actually a picture I'd probably save and post.
That's sick.
So that's a little look into how I go through essentially a breakout shot of a player coming at me, and it's cool to have you on the show to see the process.
Hey, that's pretty tight. So just has any of your photos made it to the magazine?
Yeah, the one that came out of Cup.
Both of them.
Yeah. The first magazine that came out, I had, I think, anywhere from like 8 to 10 photos in there. And that for me was like a surreal moment. I remember waiting for the magazines when I was a kid in the mail, right? And it's like to actually see my work in there, which is, I can't ever describe what that feeling was. But at Cup, so this last event, I had sent, Alex always asks for some of my work, like to put in the magazine if they need it. And he asked me for one specific photo. He's like, hey, do you have a better version of this? And I was like, I don't. I was like, I can, go back in and tweak it and edit a little bit. And he was like, cool. That was in the middle of the summer and I never heard back. And so I knew the magazine was coming out at Cup, and I think it was Junior Brown, from Dynasty and BFP Gear. They were on their way to Cup, and they posted a picture on their story of the magazine on the airplane, like they were reading it. And what it was this. It was a picture of Archie that Philip Swindle took. And I was like, dude, that's a badass photo. But I'm like, man, I thought I was going to be the cover. And it's like, I got kind of bummed out. And then I show up to the event, I'm walking around, I'm walking to the Hormesis booth. I turn the corner and they've got a magazine rack. You may have seen it of, all their new magazines. They did 2 alternate covers. So the other photo is one that I took.
Yeah.
And like, it's probably the feeling
that's yours.
This is my photo. Yeah.
Oh, that's fucking sick.
Yeah. I think it's I don't know if you can see it somewhere down there. Like it has my name and stuff.
Oh, shit. I had a, brief glance at it before they took them off the shelves, but holy shit, that's pretty tight.
Like, so the feeling that you described, when you're meeting Archie, like you were overcome with emotion and feeling. That was it for me. Like, I just didn't even know. I couldn't process it in that moment. It was so wild to see that. So yeah, that was a pretty surreal moment.
How many copies do you have?
So I only had one. He only gave me one. But then when I got back home, I sent Alex a text. I was like, hey, do you happen to have any more? Because I kind of want to frame one of them. Yeah. And he sent me a few more copies of it.
I was gonna say I would have bought probably like 15 more.
Yeah, I had one, like you're at a paintball event, and so like you don't want to get stuff messed up in your gear bag. Yeah. And so I didn't want to buy all these things, then have it get all destroyed before I got home.
Yeah. You feel. I was in the Virtue had put me in an ad on one of the magazines, and I thought it was pretty cool. And my mom, my sister, my girl, everybody wanted a copy. And I still have at least one for myself right now. So
isn't that wild?
Very, very happy for that. Yeah, man. I'm hoping that I play long enough to make the cover or get my own little section one day in the magazine.
For sure. Hey, you're big on manifesting, so keep
Yeah,
talking about it and thinking about it, and it'll happen.
hope so.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, man.
Um, so I've got a few more questions for you.
Yeah.
This one's obviously coming from a media perspective. What do you think is missing from the sport from for paintball media?
Let's see. It's hard to say, right? Because I know ESPN tried to implement the GoPros, but I don't like the way they did it. Only because they had it on top of the mask and you couldn't see anything because the hoppers were in the way. And some of the film that they put out was the guy crawling and you just see the floor the whole time.
Yeah,
Maybe a barrel cam would be a lot better.
yeah,
Um, I would like to see them bring back like something like a Lauren Kelly, right? I know she's kind of retired, and they had like that sideline reporter. I always thought
yeah.
that was pretty cool, and they talked to the players afterwards, and maybe if they could bring that back, um, show the D side a little bit more love. I know they tried to this past World Cup, right? It looked pretty good in my opinion.
For sure.
It's just, I guess it's hard to film that way for some reason. I don't know if it's because the VIP section is right there, or
There wasn't a lot of room over there from a media perspective to work with. It was a really, really tight
was it tight
sideline.
quarters? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and
So,
just some of the lanes we got blasted over there.
oh shit! So we thought that the field was going to be a lot like Philly, how they had that spread out like that,
Yeah,
but it wasn't. It was the normal standard World Cup kind of layout, but
yeah.
you know,
So more like sideline coverage of kind of getting in that player's face, like right after the point or right after the match is over,
yeah,
and so you can
yeah,
see that emotion, right?
yeah. And then when they got me when I was injured, I thought it was like, I don't know, it was the media just doing their job, you know. But my coach was like, stood over me. He was just like, "Hey man, get the fuck out of our pits. Like, why are you right up on his face? He just got hurt. Like,
Yeah,
give him some breathing room." But you kind of want to give the outside world like, oh shit, ABJ just got hurt. Like
look into it.
what happened? Like, we want to know, type shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That I'm glad you brought that up. That moment for me was so hard because I look at you as you're just an incredible human. You're one of the most humble,
Uh,
not only paintball players, just people that I've met.
uh,
And I try to embody some
uh,
of what you show at the tournaments. And when I saw it happen, I was like, oh no, like something's off here. And like I saw you kind of like fight through it a little bit,
mhm.
and then I came out into the pits, and like when I saw you sitting on the table, like honestly, dude, like my chest like dropped.
Yeah.
And then when I didn't want to get in your face, I wanted to respect that, and so I went way far back, and I zoomed in,
Mhm.
and I just waited. And honestly, those were some of the hardest pictures that I've ever taken because I literally felt myself tearing up as I was taking that because I could see what that moment was for you.
Yeah. Um, I think my health. I don't think it's something I take for granted. Obviously, it's sports. Injuries happen all the time. But I've pretty much gone my whole sports career without ever being injured, except one time when I was playing semi-pro with excessive. I had strained my hip flexor, and that took me out for the rest of the tournament. But I recovered pretty fast after that. But this one was a lot different. It was one of the last points against Aftermath, and I remember being pretty fatigued, um, and I was just trying to make something happen. I think we were down by like 2 points, and we
Yeah.
needed a point back. And I had two guys right in front of me. I had just killed a guy across on the Dorito side. I knew there was a snake, and I knew there was a snake corner. So I was like, all right, I have to get these guys out. Um, so I popped up in their snake, and I took my first couple shots at the snake in front of me. I tried to shoot his hopper. I came back down, and as I came back down, my my ass and my pod pack hit the back of my ankle, and I felt the click and heard a pop, and I was like, okay, that's different. I think I broke my foot, And that was my initial thought. And I was just like, all right, well, I'm running off adrenaline, so I think I could still try to make something happen. So if you see me finishing off the point,
Yeah.
I snap back up, I kill the snake guy in front of me, and then I try to take off and kill the corner guy, which I do, but I'm in so much pain as I'm running that he shoots me because I'm right and open, and I'm like, oh fuck, I can't run. Like this is different.
Yeah.
And it felt like someone punched me in the back of my calf, right? It felt like a Charlie horse or something, and I just couldn't walk. And I was like, I don't think I'm gonna make it back to the pits. I think I really broke my foot. But they get back to the pits, and I get carried off on my teammates. They put me on the table, and Trent Mason, really really sweet guy, hell of a player too, comes over and immediately comes to my aid. He's like, dude, I just hurt my ankle. I know exactly what you're going through.
Wow.
And at that particular moment, you see me kind of break down in tears, just because as a player, you're so competitive and you work so hard to play the game and stay in shape and be great, that you come to a point where an injury is taking you out, and you don't know if it's a season-long injury. You don't know what it is. But at that particular moment, I thought it was something super, super serious, and I was just like, fuck, like, now I'm going to be out for like maybe 6 months, a year. I don't know, because I don't know what it is. But, Trent is there to my aid. He's like, hey, man, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to elevate it, put some ice on it. He's like, you got to get you one of these ankle braces that I have on right now. He's like, I just went through this some months ago. He's like, it's just going to take some time. He's like, you're very fortunate that it happened at World Cup, because, we have some time to kind of recover.
Yeah.
We got that 3, 4, 5 month gap, and my first practice is in January. So, I need to be healthy before then.
Yeah.
And, I just been kind of going through the process right now. I'm just, I'm kind of rehabbing it right now, doing some light exercises to kind of get the tendons and muscles moving in there and make sure, obviously I don't want arthritis or anything building up in my joints, or
Sure.
just keeping it active, moving it, rotating it, elevating it at night, icing it, Epsom salt baths, nothing crazy. I'm so used to like working out all the time.
Yeah.
That's very, very frustrating that I can't really do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm lifting weights right now, which is fine, but I prefer not to lift so much because I don't
Sure.
want to be, overloaded. I mean, it'd be nice to be muscular, but like I just don't see the benefit of having so much muscle in paintball.
Yeah. Wouldn't
But
translate.
yeah, just kind of resting it. Like I said, it's been super frustrating because it's been 3 weeks now, and I'm kind of just going through the motions and hoping, praying that like everything gets better. But I did do my X-rays; everything were negative. No breaks, no fractures, no dislocations. I went in and saw the physician, my doctor, and she took a look at it. She made me do certain motions to make sure that it was okay. She was like, all right, there's no swelling. There's no, anything seems to be major. The only
Yeah.
problem I have is just like when I run on it, the initial pressure on the joint, it hurts. So it takes away from my running. So I'm just going to wait till maybe, mid-December before I do anything, and just keep resting it, and then we'll see how it goes. But it's a new process for me,
Yeah.
right? I'm not used to being hurt. I don't, I work out all the time, make sure my body's in tip-top shape, and this is, I think it's God just teaching me how to be patient. I think.
Yeah, man, thank you so much for walking us through that. That was such a
Yeah.
unreal moment. I think, of course, I think everyone thinks the worst in that moment of like, oh, ABJ just tore his ACL or popped something like that.
Yeah.
And then it was such like those are the stories that you hear, on the NFL of that go down in the greatest moments, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like for Trent Mason, who's literally on deck about to go, and they're heading into their first Sunday,
Right.
doesn't even think twice and comes over to you.
Right.
That blew me away. And I love Trent already because I spent a lot of time up at Paintball Fit, but like that just brought his respect level way up. And I hope other people see that moment and just see what type of person he is. That's
Oh,
so
man.
amazing.
Let me tell you something. So you know how I had that, what is that, that fruition with Montemayor?
Yeah.
And so in that very moment when he was helping me with my ankle, I was just like, I could see Fit winning this event. Like I see them with their cigars and them holding their trophy. Like in that very moment, I was just like, they're gonna win this fucking tournament.
Wow.
And it happened. Crazy, right? Man, like,
Wow.
you know, I'm great for them, right?
Sure.
Congratulations to Fit. You know, um, a lot of people are giving them shit. They're like, oh, they're not a rookie team. They used to play against AC Dallas. But even then, so for them to come back from semi-pro, come back in and win World Cup, it is the hardest event to win,
Hands down.
hands down. Like, you know, that's fucking great. And I think these guys, you know, they play 3 to 4 or 5 times a week, and I think they changed the culture of paintball now. Like they
Yeah.
have shifted it. You know, Dynasty was winning it so long that, you know, finally there's a new face, there's a new, you know, brand coming up.
Yeah, it's almost like we're going back to old school paintball, right? Where like you needed to be grinding with your boys week in and week out, you know,
Yeah.
not this. I think Marcelo said it a week or two ago on his podcast, not this era that we've been in where, hey, we're going to see each other a week or two before the event. You know, we're going to fly across the country, but like they're going back to that old school grit where, you know, you've got to be practicing every weekend. You've got to be at the field, your local field, a few times a week, just so those little reps turn into bigger points.
100%. And you kind of see the differences, right? Where you see like a paintball Fit, or you see OG teams like Dynasty. Like you look at that roster, and those guys have been playing for 10 years plus.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Impact, 10 years plus. You look at Damage, like those guys have been playing for years.
Yeah.
And then you see how Fit comes in, where these are fairly young guys, and they come in and they're like, all right, we're gonna take the crown from you guys.
And not even think twice about it. You know,
Not
it's
even think
almost
about it.
it almost for me, like when I was on the field, you know, shooting them in the finals, it was like, wow, it feels like we're turning a new page in paintball. Like we're starting, there's something starting here. You
Yeah.
know, and I didn't know what it was at the moment, but it feels like we're shifting to a new style of how teams are going to have to practice and how they're going to have to gel together.
Yeah. And those guys have been playing for, you know, they've been playing together for quite some time from divisional days, right? Like they've been,
Yeah. And a lot of them work together too. A lot of them either work for the field or for JD's, you know, brand that he has, you know, outside of paintball too. So they're literally a family. They're with each other 24/7.
yeah, big respect to them, right?
Yeah.
They built the culture in Texas, along with, you know, all the other guys, X Factor, AC Dallas, Diesel, you know,
Yeah.
all those camps. Like, you know, big ups to Texas, right?
Yeah. It's the up and up.
Texas paintball has definitely taken over.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's cool to be a part of, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned in that moment, which is crazy by the way, that in that moment where you potentially could have had a season-ending career for next season, you weren't even thinking about yourself. You were thinking about somebody else in a different team. Like that's such a humbling moment for you. Um, have you had any other manifesting moments, you know, for the next few years, or also what is next for ABJ in the next few years?
You know, manifestation, I've had, you know, visions outside of paintball of being uh, super successful in life. I don't know what particularly in, but, you know, generating some type of wealth, or, you know, being in a better situation than I'm in now,
Yeah.
right? Because I live in California, and, you know, I got my family out the hood. We're in a better part of town. Um, you know, a safer environment, but we live in like a 2 bedroom apartment. And, you know, I kind of look at my kids and I'm like, all right, we have 3 kids together. And I'm like, well, we have to get out of this tiny apartment. Like, I can't
Yeah.
keep myself here forever, right? Like, I have to make something more of my family. And to be with a new team where I'm financially compensated is definitely a blessing, right? I'm not going to sit here and say that, oh, well, Archie, you know, it was a sellout because he decided to take a contract and get some money. like, how can you say that about somebody, right? Like, how do you know that whatever they're getting paid or whatever that player is getting paid isn't making his family's financial situation better, right?
Exactly.
And for me, like, I want to learn financial literacy. I want to learn different ways and avenues to build wealth for my family, so that way I
Yeah.
can build generational wealth and break the curse of, you know, of what my family is now. Um, you know, who's to say that I don't take that salary and do something with it,
Hmm.
right? Yeah.
I love that. And yeah, I think that's exactly why I asked that question earlier about, what your profession is and what other people's professions are, because some of these contracts that are getting thrown around, some are small, some are large. Us sitting outside of that person's family, we don't know what they're going to use that money for. That could be
Exactly.
just food on their table every week. We don't know.
Exactly.
And so it's always kind of frustrating when I see people like, oh, this person's a sellout because maybe they're going to pay off a credit card bill. Maybe they're going to get out of debt, and they're going to better their family's life.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah,
Exactly.
I love to hear that you're working on that. And I think I mentioned it earlier. There's that podcast that I really enjoy, that Diary of a CEO.
Hmm.
They just had somebody on recently, and I forget the person's name, but he talks about there's two things that go in and out of his pockets. One's liabilities and one's assets.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
looks at like if I buy like a shirt or a hat, he's like, it's technically a liability because it's not making me money. It's not
Money.
an asset that's making me
Right.
money. So interesting way to look at
Funny you say
finances.
that. Yeah, because I'm like, start as I get older, I'm starting to look at different things, and I'm like, all right, well, how if I invest my money into this, like, how would it make me money? Or
Yeah.
because I used to be, when I was younger, I was super materialistic. You know, jewelry, clothes, Louis Vuitton, Gucci, all that shit was all
Flashy
into me.
stuff. Yeah.
And I was like wearing it, and I'm like, okay, well, what does this really mean? Like, it don't mean anything. Doesn't,
Yeah.
other than, oh, like, look at me, like, my financial status is high, but in reality it's not. Like, it's just, you just have nice shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm kind of going through that similar phase right now.
Mhm.
And I think what I've realized for me is when I was going through like all the flashy stuff, I was, without knowing at the time, I was looking for someone's reaction to what I was either wearing or portraying.
Right.
But the more I've learned about myself, the more I don't need someone's reaction. And so
Yeah.
then like your materialistic stuff goes down.
Right. It's all about whatever you buy. What is the meaning? What does it mean to you? Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I don't need your approval. I don't. It doesn't matter. Why?
Yeah, totally.
Like, even if I had the money and I was a millionaire, I'd probably still drive my same Toyota Corolla. Like, it gets me to point A to point B. I save a bunch of gas. The maintenance on it is super low. I still have a ton of money in my pocket. Like, why?
Yeah,
I mean, don't get me wrong. It'd be super nice to drive a super fast Ferrari or Lamborghini or something like that. Then over time, I'm just gonna be like, all right, well, I need a new one.
exactly. Yeah, it's always another one, right?
It's just always another one. It's always a new one. Now it's all about, all right, status. Like, yeah. But
Yeah,
it's all subjective to what you like, right? When you watch
totally.
watches or whatever,
Yeah,
whatever you're
it's
into.
for sure. Awesome. Well, thanks for giving me a peek into your personal life too. It's so
Yeah.
good to hear from other players in the league. Speaking of that podcast, I just mentioned, yeah, he always ends his segments with giving his guests an opportunity to ask a future guest a question without knowing who that guest is. And so, two-part for you. One, what question would you love to ask another guest? And then after you give me that, I'm going to ask you a question from a previous guest.
Okay. Okay. If you were a pro player and you were getting paid a salary from $10,000 to $50,000 a year, what would you do with that money?
Do with that money? Okay, got it. I will ask that to the next guest I have on.
Sure.
And then your question. So this is actually coming from Sal Chavez. He is, Sal, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh,
do you think it's a serious question or like a silly question?
I think it's a silly question.
100% a silly question. So when he asked it, like I lost it on the show. So Sal asked, "Is cereal a soup or cereal a chowder?"
Okay, but technicality, is soup hot? Does it have to be hot?
Some people have cold soup too, and he was saying like the milk kind of brings the creaminess of the chowder.
Yeah, that's if you let it get soggy though. All right, so for the record, I pour my milk first, and then I pour the cereal, and it's very scientific
Mm-hmm.
because I hate my cereal soggy, and I need it fresh every time, crunchy
Exactly.
milk. Oh man, that's a hard one.
See, that broke my brain too. I never thought of soup or cereal as a soup or chowder.
I don't know much about chowder either because I don't really eat chowder. I know what it is, but I'm gonna say soup. I'm gonna
Soup.
say soup. Yeah. If
All
I had to
right.
lean toward one way, I'd probably say soup.
I love it. Hey, there you have it, listeners. ABJ, soup forever. So tomorrow morning, when you're sitting with your family, you're going to tell them you're having soup for breakfast.
Having soup for breakfast, cold soup.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. Awesome. Well, ABJ, thank you so much for coming on the show. Do you have any last things, any shout outs that you want to give before we wrap up?
Yeah, man. Shout out to basically all my mentors and people who basically walked me through this off season and gave me some type of guidance and advice in this off season. Very stressful, very made my anxiety go crazy, but
I bet.
I was able to settle on my decision and went through it with my wife and my family, and this is where I'm at. This is where I landed, and I'm very fortunate and blessed to be in this position. Shout out to all my new sponsors at Planet Eclipse, Hormesis, Pro DNA, Tom Ford, like I said, for giving me the opportunity to be on Baltimore Arsenal, and all the guys on the roster for welcoming me. A huge thank you to my former team, Austin Notorious and Marky Friends, the whole Notorious organization, and yeah, man, I'm just hoping that, like I said, we work through this injury, and I'm definitely more motivated than ever to get better and go out and perform and put on a show like I've been doing, and just keep the paintball rolling.
I love that. I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think you're going to come out with your best season yet.
I think so. I think so.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for being on the show, and it's good seeing you. Happy New Year, and good luck next season.
Thank you, Dan.